Hello, friends. Welcome to Soul Shift Coaching. I am David Hale. Thank you for being here. I want to touch on a very important topic today, and it's not like it's some earth-shattering insight because the human experience hasn't changed for tens of thousands of years, but I hope that it lands new on you. That's really what it is. We all find our particular flavor, the particular message through whom it can land on us, and that's what I'm hoping that you all have with me from time to time, is that though you might have heard it before, hopefully it lands afresh on you. And what I want to talk to you all about today is closing the gap. I want to close the gap with you all. Well, what is that gap? The gap is the distance between our beliefs, the core truths that we base our life upon, and then the subjective evidence that is supposed to be flowing from those truths. So we have objective facts and objective truths in our lives. And from those objective truths, we then have subjective evidence. And I'm telling you, the width of that gap is inversely proportional to the level of transformation in your life. Think about it. There's an objective fact that I am married, praise God, to my beautiful wife. We have a marriage license. We have assets in our name. We have the same last name. We had a big ceremony, right? There is objective truth to the fact that I am a married man. But then the question becomes, David, how is that subjective evidence that either supports or negates that objective fact? How is the quality of my marriage? How is the intimacy, not just physical, there's so much more than that. How's the quality of the intimacy? If I was to be put on a stand in a court of law, could I provide enough evidence, subjective evidence, for the jury to say beyond a reasonable doubt that yes, this man is married, and not only is there a factual basis for it, but there's plenty of evidence for it? There are areas in each of our lives where that gap is way too big. And our transformation is inversely proportional to the size of that gap. Because as we shrink that gap, what does that actually mean? If we bring tighter and tighter those truths with the evidence. Well, another way of saying that, my dear friends, is that our thoughts are aligning with our actions. And when we align our thoughts with our actions over an extended period of time, well, then transformation has to unfold. It has to unfold. So which area in your life, which relationships? That's a very easy way to start. I'm in recovery. I know that's not everyone's story, but I bet $1 you know someone who is either in recovery or needs to be in recovery. But being in recovery, you are forced to look at your relationships. And we are relational creatures. Everything in this world is one big fat relationship. And so the quality of our relationships has to constantly be assessed. And in recovery, early on, you got so many people, man, I love my kids. I love my kids. I'll do anything for them. Well, you might state that and believe that, but the decades worth of subjective evidence is directly opposite of that. Now, I know it's not extreme for all of you in that situation. However, I know there's certain relationships. Maybe you think you are a really good employee. And the question is, well, how much subjective evidence is there to prove that? Maybe you believe you're a really good son or daughter or brother or sister or community citizen. And the question is that you might believe these things, you might say these things, but is there enough subjective evidence? And what I would suggest to you, when there's not subjective evidence, you know it. I knew it. I stayed drunk on a bar stool for years, admitting that I was an alcoholic, saying knowing is half the battle. But it wasn't until I actually did something about it that I actually started to change my life. And see, when we say certain truths but don't have the evidence to back it, well, it goes to that classic line, a house divided cannot stand. And we know it at a deep level, that we're just doing the hokey pokey, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, never fully committing to anything, but talking a good game. Or maybe we're just very inconsistent. We've got ebbs and flows, crests and troughs. We're all in or we're all out. And if you're raising a kid, or if you're trying to date someone, or if you got an employer, any type of relationship, if you're in and out, hot and cold, black and white, it's just chaotic. Alignment of thoughts and actions. We want to close that gap to have our thoughts and our actions in alignment. And so I challenge you to look at those areas of your life. Start with your relationships to see where, you know what, I'm saying certain things, I'm believing certain things, but I don't have the evidence to back that up. And I humbly suggest to you and challenge you to start doing those little things to invest in those relationships. So that subjective evidence is there, and the quality of the relationship does nothing but shoot up, just increases and improves exponentially. Have you bought your wife flowers just because she's your wife? Have you taken the long walk with your spouse? Or have you handwritten a letter to someone that you're close to? Have you picked up the phone and called rather than shoot a text? I mean, I could go on and on and on. Are you doing the job at work no one else wants to do and it just keeps getting shoved to the back corner? When was the last time you addressed that one room in your home where you shove everything? Have you cleaned it out recently? I mean, we just could keep going on. But we want to make sure that our actions are closer and closer and closer in alignment with our thoughts. Another aspect of this is that one of the reasons why we don't always align our thoughts and our actions is because they're not immediately evident. And my analogy for this, my example for this is smoking. I sucked down cancer sticks for 10 years. Loved them, Marlboro Reds. And see, the thing about smoking is that I didn't see it hitting my lungs right away, right? And one cigarette, you're not just going to fall over dead. It takes time. And so part of the reason why we can separate our thoughts, hey, I'm a healthy guy, I'm a hard-charging Marine, I take care of my body, and yet I'm sucking down cancer sticks. I mean, it was diametrically opposed. It was moronic, and I blame some of it on my youth. However, as we go through life, what happens is I call it the slow fade. You start with one cigarette, you start with two, you start with one donut, you start with one vacation of overeating. What I'm saying is that overeating is a classic example. Smoking is a classic example. Credit card debt is a classic example. Overworking at work, adding the stress is a classic example. I could keep not cutting back on sleep, getting 6 hours of sleep rather than the 7 or 8. I could just keep going and going. And what happens is the slow fade over time. You wake up one day and you say, how in the world did I get 40 pounds overweight? How in the world did I end up 200 grand in debt? That's not a mortgage, right? How in the world did I end up just cohabitating with this person who was technically my spouse? My kid's getting ready to go off to college, and I haven't had a real conversation with him or her in 3 years. It's life. It's a slow fade. It's the disconnect between the truths that we say we believe and then the subjective evidence. And so we're going to close the gap in 2025. And where this can all sit in it, going back to recovery, a way to think about this to help frame it up so we can actually have something to hang it on, a framework, is the 12 steps. And the third step, and it doesn't matter if you're in addiction or not, this is a life framework because we're all hurt. We all have pain, we all have trauma. That's just a reality of the situation. It might look different, but it feels the same. See, I have no right to judge your pain, just as you have no right to judge my pain. But pain is pain. And someone's most painful event in their life is the same as someone else's most painful event in their life, regardless of the zip code, regardless of the actual, people involved. Pain is pain. I got sidetracked. So, I bring up the 12 steps because it's a wonderful framework to drive transformation in your life, to stop doing one thing and start doing another. And the third step is we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives, our wills, our thoughts and our emotions, and our lives, our actions, over to the care of God as we understand them. We turn it over. See, that third step is yet another releasing of control. See, it's scary to admit that a house divided can't stand on its own. It's scary to admit that, you know what, if I called a spade, I'm really living as a hypocrite. Saying and believing one thing and yet doing or not doing another. And so what the third step allows us to do is to throw it up to the objective truth, the objective reality, the creator, the power of the universe, and say, you know what? You take it. Because under my own devices, if I call every shot, I have plenty of subjective evidence that if I call every shot, my batting average ain't going to get me into Cooperstown. But when I turn it over, well, then my batting average greatly improves. And the quality of my life improves. And the quality of my relationships improves. And it's just an easier, softer way to live. And so, my dear friends, analyze your life for the gap. Believing and saying one thing and yet doing or not doing another. And the level of transformation in your life is inversely proportional to the size of that gap. If it's a small gap and your thoughts and actions are aligned, you are being transformed. There's no doubt about it. Keep it up. But there are absolutely other areas in your life where that gap needs to be addressed. And if you apply the principle of aligning thoughts and actions over an extended period of time, if you go to that third step, made a decision to turn our lives and our wills, our thoughts and our emotions and our actions over to the care of God, as we understood him, well, then he could start to direct your actions and your thoughts and your beliefs. And then you can even be so bold as to incorporate a very simple yet powerful prayer. Do with me and build with me as thou shalt. Right? Just turn it over. Do with me and build me as you will. And allow the day-to-day thoughts and actions our response to those day-to-day thoughts and actions. Allow our collective responses, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, build that new life momentum, build that subjective evidence, build the character, build back that meaning in our life, closing the gap and inviting and bringing in and nurturing transformation. It's what I've been blessed. I've been blessed to be walking down this path of transformation. I've failed many times, stubbed my toe. I do it all the time. But I've maintained a transformational mindset, a transformational framework, a transformational calling, responding to that calling far more often than not. And it's what I want for you. And it's what I'm doing here at Soul Shift Coaching. We all have those areas in our lives where we're stuck. We all have those areas in our lives that need to be healed. We all have those areas in our lives that need to be addressed. And then once you bring them out, bring them to light, and can address them, well, then that frees you to start marching down this thing called life with a new sets of eyes and new sets of ears and a new heart. And I'd be honored and privileged to walk with you down this path in this beautiful thing that we call life. So if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And subscribe. I'm trying to build my subscriptions this year in 2025. And then you can also see in the description box below my coaching website, soulshift.org. You can go there, check out me and my approach, read some reviews. I have good reviews. And you can also see book coaching. And you can schedule a free consultation and we can connect. See where you are, see who you are, and see who you want to become, and more importantly, how you want to get there. And that's what I do as a transformation coach. I help you stay between the yellow lines to help you better navigate this thing called life. Stand tall, my dear friends. Stand firm. You're worth it.